Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. Tonight, our special guests with us are the Arkansas boys. Uh, we'll bring them on here in just a second. I'll let Mr. Blake do a little intro here, and then we'll get with it. Go ahead, Blake.
How's it going, guys? Hope everybody's doing well. And as always, thank you guys for your support. And if you don't mind, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, bell notification, like, and a comment. That's pretty much all, Ricky.
Yeah, guys, like Blake said, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button, and let's welcome the Arkansas boys. Give them a big hand. Here we go. All right, guys, the floor is yours.
Howdy, folks. I'm Wendell Hurricane Burris, and this is Matthew Stone. He's one of my right-hand man. What got the Arkansas boys into Bigfooting? We started out as a hunting group that would take kids out to the outdoors, duck hunt, fish, little everything, deer hunt.
Your mic's muted. I'm sorry, Wendell. Go ahead.
Anyway, in 2015, we were sitting around and planning for the next year what we was going to do, and it was kind of a lull between the coon season that we was in January all the way up to turkey season. So we was all sitting around, and I had done been introduced to the Bigfoot, trying to figure out what they were and where they were at in Arkansas. Actually, in 2011 when I started, but as the Arkansas boys, we were sitting around and they was asking what we was going to do. So I kind of jokingly said, "Well, let's go down to Fowl and investigate the Boggy Creek Monster and see what's going on with that." Well, we ended up going down there, and me and my friend, G.I. Joe, he was helping me, and we actually got to see something run across the road. It was actually at Jonesville. It's just outside of Fowl. But it run through a 5-strand barbed wire fence and across the field at an angle. It was probably 100 yards from us, but I'm 6'5", and it was 6-8 inches taller than me, even slouched over as it run. Or I say run, it was a weird motion as it moved across the field, but it was fast. So, and I asked G.I. Joe, I said, "Did you see that?" And he said, "I sure did. What was it?" I said, "I don't know, but that's got me hooked right there." So we've been searching ever since, trying to figure out the southern Bigfoot here in Arkansas.
Right. You mentioned Fouts. How far are y'all boys actually from there?
100 miles. Yeah, about 100 miles, right at it.
So y'all basically right down in the heart of the country where the movie was filmed back in the early 70s.
More central, and Falk is to the southwest part of Arkansas. So, but everybody that's lived here or been out in the woods has heard about or seen that movie. So that was my first thinking about Bigfoot. But I always thought it was way down there or out west or somewhere else, not right here local. But once you start searching and putting 2 and 2 together, and you start seeing structures and tracks where they shouldn't be nothing, no barefoot kind of track there, and especially nothing. The biggest track that we found is in our area at Painburn. It's 21 inches. That's huge, and it's a plain. You can see it footprint. I mean, so. You got to say, well, something made that. So, Matthew,
Right.
you want to tell them about your encounter?
Sure. I got in touch with Wendell after I had my encounter, and I was out hunting first time in I guess it was about 3 years ago. Second weekend of rifle season of deer, I was going through the woods, had an encounter about 60 yards out through my scope. Realized after everything had happened that it was about 10 foot from this limb that I spotted out on one of the oak trees that it was hiding behind in some brush. Well, the following weekend or two, I'd made another scouting after this, and it was in between two rain bands, and found 5 different tracks. 2 of them were 17-inch tracks. I got a print out of that, and it started raining again that day, and let that cast set up, and probably about 30 minutes of rain with the cast covered over. I came out and found another about 20 to 21-inch print that was dry, probably 150 yards from where my truck was parked. So it had been standing there watching me in the rain at that time. But that kind of got me hooked on, okay, it wasn't a bear. I've got the print. I've seen structures out there. I've got pictures of structures, more different footprints in that area. And I've tracked it within a 15-mile radius and still have more evidence that I've accumulated over the past 2 years.
Wow.
That's what got me into doing more investigation with Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and doing more with Arkansas. So.
Right. So y'all guys, you said that this thing was in the brush. Could you actually tell the body mass of this creature when you first saw it?
Yes. It was somewhat really muscular, but still had some body weight to it. I could tell that its arms were longer than its legs when it was walking. Where I hunt is kind of teed off on a cliffside, and the trail tees off about 1.5 miles in, and halfway up is when I first had my sighting of it, and it was probably about a 15-minute interval of it kind of paralleling me up this cliffside to where I could hear it coming up the cliffside. And I don't know if you've ever heard like a turkey kind of make like a thump sound out of its chest, but times that by 5 coming up a cliffside. And that kind of made me hesitate for a minute. Okay, something's coming up this cliffside, but it was actually paralleling me and chasing 2 deer up this cliffside that ran across the small little fire lane that I was walking up. And so it was chasing up the deer, and then I guess got downwind of me and was paralleling me for a good couple hundred yards. And that's when I saw it in the deep brush, kind of a thicket area. And it goes from hardwood thickets to kind of pines to a cedar thicket. It's kind of like a cedar dome on top of this ridge. So after that, the next year, forestry had came in and cleared out about 40 acres of that cedar glen. And just this past year, they have cleared out probably 40 to 60 acres along a roadway of hardwoods, kind of select cut through there. So, but there are a couple old structures up there still that I'm able to find and know where they're at. And there's a couple of X's that were made after I put up my game cameras, which were probably about 8-inch tree trunks that were intertwined, probably 10 feet away, back behind my game camera after about 2 weeks of my game camera being set up there. So that was kind of odd to me to stand out too, that there's still activity up there the year after. So it's kind of like it comes up there about every 6 to 8 months, I guess, making kind of a travel way through that section, and it's along the creekway too, along with this cliffside.
Have y'all ever done much documenting of the tree signs and everything?
We've done quite a bit of it. In our area up here, we do a lot of hunting over in the North Georgia mountains, around Blue Ridge. Blue Ridge, for some reason, right now is a hotbed. Of course, you know, Blue Ridge is where the Appalachian Trail comes down, and my feeling on the Bigfoot in this area up here is that they actually use that Appalachian Trail as actually a highway for them, basically, that they travel back and forth on. And yeah, we found quite a bit of structure over in that area over in there. Like I say, it's probably what, Blake, 20-25 miles from here over to Blue Ridge.
Oh no, you're probably, well, to where we go, up on top of the WMA. I mean, you're looking, it's 12 miles just once you get off the dirt road back to where we go. So I mean, you're probably looking at 40 miles, something like that.
Probably. Yeah. Yeah, I hadn't took into consideration from the main road down there back in there where we go. So yeah, it is. It's about 40-45 miles from here over there. So, you know, we get to hunt that area maybe once a month, something like that. But we do a lot of scouting around here. We're also into paranormal. We have a cemetery down in Bartow County that we frequent quite a lot. And actually, in 2011 is where Blake had his sighting of a family group of 3 of them, which is documented on the BFRO. Blake, you want to tell them about that?
So, I mean, I'll just kind of start from the beginning, I guess. The cemetery that he's talking about is Old Macedonia Cemetery. Basically, we kind of started going down there, paranormal investigating. I'd never had an encounter as far as Bigfoot or anything up until this point. I mean, I've always believed, but I never thought I'd be one of the people that actually had a personal encounter. So basically, we started going down to the cemetery, and we went down there probably at least a handful of times or more. Then me and Ricky were out there one night, and we were getting ready to leave, and basically we heard a howl. Nothing like I'd ever heard. Ricky, I mean, of course, he's an ex-taxidermist. I mean, he's dealt with everything in the woods. I mean, I've heard most things in the woods. I've never heard anything like this. Kind of what come of that, I guess. It really, we heard it, we left. I wouldn't say it was definitely one of the more scary things I'd ever heard at the time. And kind of what led into even thinking it was Bigfoot, because I mean, that was not a thought process when I had heard that, at least. I'd been doing a little research online, and somehow I come across Bigfoot House. And actually, a couple that I'd heard sounded just like what we'd heard down there at the lake. So I guess after that, basically we started going down there, and that's when the kind of idea of maybe possibly that's what it is, because we'd heard it a couple of times after that, before we actually started going down there and trying to get responses. So went down there, got the idea of just try Howl. Well, got a response. Then I guess after that, we started having things thrown at us. I guess they were starting to come in a little closer to us. My father was actually down there with us. We'd been telling him about the howls and stuff, and he's one of those that wasn't really a skeptic, but I mean, just thought it was possible, but same as me, never thought anything would ever happen to him. And we took him down there a couple times, and nothing happened, of course, after we'd been telling him this stuff. And we were down there, he went down there with us one night, and we were standing in the middle cemetery, and basically started having rocks thrown at us. And that was kind of like my dad's first type of encounter. And after that, I mean, just multitude of things. I mean, we've had trees pushed over, multiple howls, whoops. We've heard samurai chatter down there. And kind of what led into without going, explaining every single trip that's happened down there, because this is over a period of time. This was over about a year period. When all this first started, or we first started having encounters. Basically, I'd been out there, got there super late. We stayed, me and one of my friends, we had got there probably about 12 or 1 o'clock in the morning. We planned on staying until that next morning, and it actually been raining. And there's actually a pavilion there, so we'd been hanging out under the pavilion, super quiet night other than the rain. And I got the idea of just walking around the lake, because it was winter time and lake was down, so we could actually walk around the bank. Got the idea to go out there, to start walking around the bank, see if we see any footprints or anything, and we actually found a couple footprints that day. Not super huge footprints, maybe 13 inches, 14 inches, maybe more like a juvenile. So basically, kind of what led up to my sighting was, the whole time we were walking around the bank, remind you, where I actually had my sighting from where we were at. It's probably about a mile and a half. So we had about a mile and a half walk to where we actually had my sighting. So on the way back there, basically we'd been feeling like we were being followed. And you could actually hear like something paralleling us, just out of our view in the woods. So basically we would stop moving, you'd hear it stop moving. Then we actually, after that, we moved into the wood line, and basically what happened, I don't know why it happened or how it happened. I don't know if we were just in, if it was just meant to happen type situation. After we'd come into the wood line, we come over a little hill. And they're about it's a little cove. So basically where we were at, we were probably about 50 yards from the wood line to the bank up in the woods. And you go over this little hill and there's a cove, just a small, it's not a very big cove. And there's a big boulder that sits right there in the middle of that cove. Well, on the back side as we come across that hill, that's when we seen the male. That was the first one that we seen. I didn't see breast. I seen breast on what I would consider the female. So that's how I distinguish, it was a family. See the male, he's standing on the other side of the rock. Remind you, this rock's probably, 8 foot tall. And we could actually see the head of this creature above the rock. And over to its left. No, it'd been its right. Because it'd been its right was the female and the juvenile. The female was probably 7 foot, not super big, definitely not small. Juvenile was probably about 4 foot, about the size of probably a 5 or 6 year old, 7-year-old, something like that. Basically, we actually got to see these creatures for probably about a good couple minutes, long enough where I actually called Ricky while this sighting was happening. He was at work that day, and I called him as we were looking at him, and I don't know really what happened. Basically, I guess we spooked them, and the female picks up the juvenile, and they basically they go by, so they were facing more of kind of like, they'd been facing us kind of to the right. And they basically just go back behind them towards the tree because they were right there at the wood line. And within 15 seconds, it was like they were never there. It was just It's kind of a weird sighting, I guess. I mean, I really don't know how to explain it. I just know what I mean. And for years, I mean, I didn't even tell people I actually saw Bigfoot. I mean, because I don't know what I saw. I mean, did I see what people describe as Bigfoot? Yes. But I mean, I still don't just come out and say, "Hey, I've seen a Bigfoot." I've seen something I can't explain.
That's the way I was with the Fountain deal, but after several different investigations and follow up evidence, there's nothing else that could have been.
yeah. I mean, I definitely saw a Bigfoot, but I'm just, I saw a Bigfoot. I mean, it is, that I did see a Bigfoot. I mean,
Blake, even after all this time since 2011 up till now, Blake is still he still he won't tell people he actually saw a Bigfoot, but he saw something that he couldn't explain. He knows it's not a bear. He knows it's not anything of that type. They were bipedal, but still he has a hard time admitting to himself that he saw a Bigfoot.
Yeah, that's just.
Well, I'm so open-minded. Like, I mean, it was something that's not normal.
Right.
And is it what we describe as Bigfoot? Yes, it was Bigfoot.
He was talking about the whoops or scream. We was at OARK, let's see, not this last investigation, but two investigations ago. So it'd been you wasn't there at that one. It was me and so it was 2017, or would it have been 18? I don't know. They kind of blend together when you've been doing it so many different times. But anyway, we was in one area there at OARK, and when we had everything set up, our cameras and stuff we'd built out there, well, lo and behold, that weekend, this is a national forest, that this side-by-side group had come through and messed everything up, so there's no activity there. So the guy that was with us said, well, as a kid, they've always been something in this area over here. I'll take you over there. Well, just so happened we ended up in that area, and I was like, well, I don't think there ain't nothing going to happen. Well, that first night of camp, we started gathering firewood and getting everything up. And my buddy Marcus, he's on the phone here listening, but had been chopping wood with we didn't bring a chainsaw or nothing. All we had was it was in between a hatchet and an axe. It was like a short-handled axe. And he got the duty, since he was the youngest one there, to chop the wood up. And he'd been doing that for about 35 minutes. And the guy that was, I want to say guide, but he wasn't our guide. He was just a friend that invited us over there and told us it was a good area. He had got a call that he had to take his other friend back because his leg was hurting. Well, while we was there, it was just me, Marcus, Clint Holloway, and a guy named Greg. And Greg had come with Clint, and he didn't believe nothing in Bigfoot, but he just wanted to come because he was out camping and because Clint invited him. Well, we were sitting there, and Marcus was chopping the wood, and he just got done with that, and Clint goes, let's make one of them whoop calls. And I said, well, I ain't never been real good at that, and I ain't had much luck. And Clint said, well, I know I can't. And Marcus had actually up on his property while we was up there, he had actually made 2 calls and had it answering. So I talked him into making the whoop, and he didn't want to at first. But anyway, as soon as he made the whoop, from a angle from us, there's a bluff side that was there that was about 50-foot drop, 40 to 50-foot drop. Well, when he made that whoop, something from, it was like it was holding on to the trees there on that bluff side. It was, I mean, it just vibrated your whole chest, and it was it started out as a whoop, and then it was a scream at the end. And that's why I call it a whoop scream. But instantly, everybody in camp was diving, and because we didn't expect nothing at that time. So I turned and got down at the edge of the truck bed. Like I said, this screen, best thing, if you ever been by a car that vibrates they got the radio up and it vibrates your chest. That's how loud this was. So there's no way you're like that. You know there was something. Well, Greg, that guy that didn't believe in Bigfoot, he come running over, and I was trying to look underneath the trees to see where it had to jump off the bluff from where the sound come from, and the motion. You could see everything moving, but it was dark, so you couldn't tell exactly what was going on. But the trees was all moving as it jumped off the bluff. Well, he'd put his hand on my shoulder because I was down at the edge of the truck bed where the tail light was, trying to see underneath the trees. And when he put his hand on my shoulder, I like to knock him out. Because I thought it was something that done had me. That's the most hilarious time there, but that was the loudest scream I've ever heard. And like I said, it was probably 50 yards from us.
Yeah, Blake and I had a deal take place down there at the lake one night about like that. We had his dad with us, and I had a heart attack actually about a month prior to this, and we'd all walked around just about where Blake had his sighting at, and we were standing there talking, and like I said, probably about a mile and a half from the truck over there, and we're standing there talking, and we got ready to leave. Blake told me to direct do a howl, so I cut loose and done a howl, and you can ask Blake, man, just as I done the howl, I mean, just as it ended, this thing was right across maybe 60 yards from us up on the bank across the little cove that come in there.
Right.
And just as I made this howl, this thing came back and it mimicked me. It sounded
just like Ricky. I mean, like it's one of the craziest things I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
Heard some pretty crazy stuff, but that was up there with one of the most unique things I've ever heard.
It was like you, man. When it yelled back, it sounded just like me, but it was at a lot higher tone. It rattled her chest.
Right.
I looked around, and Blake and his dad are gone.
I understand.
Hey, 5 minutes later, I get back to the truck. They're locked in the cab of the truck. I beat on the side of the truck. Johnny and his dad rolls the window down, and his only response, he looks down at me, and he says, "Hey, man, I didn't have to outrun Bigfoot. All I had to do was outrun you."
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm standing here thinking, "Hey, boys, I just had a heart attack, and y'all gonna let this sucker get me?" And it was a higher one of them higher rated events for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't even know how to describe that event like that. Man, I've heard all kinds of howls and whoops and whistles and all kinds of crazy stuff, but that just the most unique thing I've ever heard. Because it sounded like somebody recorded Ricky and played it back, and it was so ironic. Like Ricky's howl just had stopped. And as soon as his house stops, that's the response we get. I don't even know. It was so crazy.
That's the way that night was. I mean, it was just instant. As soon as Marcus stopped, that's when it answered back. He's talking about mimicking, though. Since probably 2016, I've been out and listening. I had a friend, which is passed on now, Tony Maddox. First time I met him, I told my wife, I said, I may not come back alive here or not. This guy seems far out there. But he ended up being a real great friend, and I sure miss him. But anyway, he taught me that. He was talking about cemeteries. That's why I brought up the other night what's the connection of Bigfoot and cemeteries. But anyway, his area was over here by Mortar Creek, which is about 10 miles from me. And I went with him over there one night, and he said, listen to this. We're sitting there, and you hear all these daytime bird sounds. And he said, that bird's not supposed to be singing and doing this at night, you know? And I'm like, you know, I never thought about that, but I've heard that before. He said, well, after I show you all these tracks and everything out here and along this creek and everything, you'll gradually learn that all them sounds that's unusual at night is Bigfoot mimicking. And that started my learning that part of it. So
we've actually, over in Blue Ridge, we've heard what we think is Bigfoot mimicking owls.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I told Blake, I said the first time we heard that over there, Blake looks at me and says, "Man, that's just an owl." Well, man, you could tell by it sounded just like an owl, but you could actually tell by the tone and the throatiness of this thing that I told Blake, I said, well, if it is, it's a 400-pound owl because
yeah, it was awful large owl.
yeah, awful large owl. But
if you'll listen long enough, you'll hear them mess up. That's the neat deal. It's when they're trying to make a sound or something, just like anybody, either their voice will be a higher pitch or tone or the wrong sound at the wrong time. Back to Marcus, we got another guy that helps us named Austin. We was there at Mountain View and they was doing tree knocks and getting answers, and they was actually getting closer and whooping, and all of a sudden Austin made a sound, and whatever he said was the wrong sound or wrong whoop or nothing, because I mean everything just stopped instant. So it's the same with them. They understand, and they'll make a wrong sound. If you make a wrong sound, it'll drive them away.
And what's so weird that we heard those the owl sounds. We just had got there. We probably hadn't been there maybe an hour, and I don't know what it was. One of the other weird things I've heard, it sounded like what you would describe as the predator. Is one of the creepiest sounds I've ever heard. Like, I don't get spooked easy anymore like I used to when I first started doing all this, but as far as doing all the paranormal stuff I've done and being in the woods and like things don't really bother me anymore. But whatever this was, it gave me the creeps. I left him outside. I got in the truck for a minute because I didn't like the way it sounded. It didn't sound nice.
yeah, that's the only thing about doing Bigfoot hunting with Blake. He'll if he ever gets scared, I mean, man, if he really gets scared, hey, he'll come up missing on you. No matter what, he's gone. he'll leave you standing out in the dark by yourself. Do y'all guys just have certain areas down there you hunt, or do you go out if people have had encounters with these things? Do y'all go out and investigate those encounters?
Yeah, we go out and investigate anybody that messages or has trouble or anything like that. We have locally, we have 4 areas. I say locally. One OARK's the farthest one, but we have 4 areas that we normally keep up and investigate every little bit. One's at OARK. The one was at Mortar Creek, and that was a real good activity area, but they went in and somebody bought all the land there, and it's one little mountain, and they built a brand new big old mansion on top of this hill, and once they built that, there's just nothing there no more. So it I guess having all the lights and everything for that mansion run them off from that area. But then we have Sylamore National Forest at Mountain View, and then our other one's at Cleveland. So that's our general area.
Right.
Unless somebody calls us and says, "Hey, we need help."
Now, I got a question. Do you mind sharing with everybody what we were talking about before we come on the show about your views on the Bible and the connection with Bigfoot?
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
Back with 2011's when I say officially got started, and even though I'd had a prior incident as a teenager that I just wrote off because I was on a bluff line and I heard chatter that now I know what the chatter was, but then it was just like, blah, 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 blah. But it was across the creek. But I couldn't see it, but even though I was on the bluff, it was all growed up down there. I was like, what is that? So I went back to the house and I asked my uncle, I said, what was this I heard down there? And he said, I told you to stay away from down there. That's them woolly boogers. But like I said, I wrote that off. In 2011, I was at the local store up here. And like I said, strange events is I'm the one running that store now. But anyway, I was sitting there and a friend of mine had a encounter on the Catherine Creek, which that's about a mile and a half from here, about a mile direction from where I heard that chatter. But he said, I believe it. I think it was a Bigfoot. And I said, I don't think so. Like I said, Boggy Creek is the only thing that I'd heard at that time. So I thought if there was anything, it was localized to one area or out west, in the Rocky Mountains or something. And anyway, he had said that he had saw this down there. And I said, I don't believe that. And he said, well, you're a Christian. You don't believe your Bible? And I'm like, there ain't no Bigfoot in the Bible. Because, I've read it. And he said, well, the actual word Bigfoot or Sasquatch ain't in there. But here's you a scripture that you can follow, and you just make up your own mind about it. You follow all these scriptures, and where that leaves you, which is Genesis 25:25. And Esau come out born with covered in red hair from head to toe as a garment. And it wasn't just like every once in a while a baby's born with hair on his head. But no, this was from head to toe like a garment. It's plain there in the Bible. Well, Esau grows up and he marries two women from the Canaanite lineage, and one was from the Hittite lineage. Both of them is descendants through they have the giant bloodline, the same as Goliath. Well, if he's covered in hair, red hair from head to toe, and then he marries or mates with a giant, that's going to be an awful big resemblance and big to being a Bigfoot. Well, their bloodline comes through, the giant bloodline comes through the flood. A lot of people say, well, the flood destroyed all the bloodline of the fallen angels, Nephilim, whatever you want to call them. Well, no, it didn't, because it come through Ham and Shem's wife. So that bloodline kept coming on through because Goliath is after the flood. There's still giants in them days. Well, Esau, it describes Esau as being a keen hunter, a man of the field, stays outdoors all the time, would prefer to be there. Then it goes on to say that he goes to live in Mount Seir. It don't say he lives on Mount Seir or around Mount Seir. It says, the Bible says he went to live in Mount Seir. Now that goes back to the Bigfoot and living in caves, dwelling in the cave system to be able to move around without being seen. And if you follow the scriptures on out, there's even it points to why Bigfoot would stay away for me is because of the fight between him and his brother. It basically says that they're going to stay apart. So that was my starting, is my friend telling me about that one scripture, and I ain't found nothing that disproves it. So I had to say, well, maybe there is something to it. So that started me looking around, putting two and two together. Like I said, I've been out hunting all my life. Most of the stuff you would look at and just write off and say, "Oh, something else done." But after you start learning what is out there, you keep saying, "Well, now that's
You
a
got
trap." Well,
got to read, got to read between the lines.
yeah. Got to read between. How did that get broke off up there at 7, 8, 10 feet high, and then you go to finding stuff that actually looks like shapes and well, one of the big giant X. That's the most common one that you find, and depending on how it's woven and how big it is it means dominance. And this is my territory. Stay out. and randomly, you would pass it before, but after you go to looking, hey, this thing has been woven into the trees. It didn't just fall. So, like you said, putting two and two together or what, and figuring, hey, something's here. So that started my personal journey from 2011 on.
Now, what's your guys' opinion on? I wouldn't say the connection with Bigfoot and paranormal, but paranormal aspects to Bigfoot, because I mean they are plenty of encounters and plenty of, wouldn't say like hard evidence, but as far as like cloaking or orbs being seen in areas of Bigfoot activity. I mean, do you think that there any connection between the two, or is it just coincidence?
Well, it's back to, there's no experts on it, but my personal belief is there's several different things that's getting put into the Bigfoot class. One is the giant, I can't say that word, Epithecus.
Giganopithecus.
Yeah, because we've actually found tracks that's got the odd toe out that looks more like an ape. Well, an ape track looks one way, and a more human foot looks the other way. So I believe right there's two different things that's getting put into the Bigfoot category. That there is actually Gigantopithecus that's left over. It's very few of them that we've found, at least in Arkansas, maybe less than 5% of them. The actual Bigfoot that looks more human-like is, like I said, descendant of Esau.
Now, I don't mean to interrupt you there, but do you think that why they are different in like people that actually have close enough encounters to see facial features? Some people describe them as being more of ape-like and more of hair-covered faces and so forth, and you have some that say that with that they look more like an actual man or more like an actual human facial features.
Yes. We had an encounter, or a guy that we went up and helped him out and videotaped and everything. His encounter is of the more actual ape type, and the track had that ape-looking foot. But he actually said they would put their knuckles down on the ground and pull their legs through. Their legs were shorter than their arms. Well, then you get the ones that actual looks more human-like. That's what I say is Esau's descendant. Then you're back to the paranormal or any of that. I'm not one to. I don't know what's out in the world. They liable to be some being out there that travel on a spaceship and come here. They liable to be some of them. Or there you go. I don't know what through the Nephilim anyway. The bloodline if there'd be any abilities left over or trait like that, or who am I to say? But I hadn't seen none of that for myself in our physical studies and everything.
But you know, if you look at it in that aspect, and they are, you know, more of a biblical being, then who's to say that they don't have, you know, more superior abilities than humans do? I mean, there's such a bigger picture to the Bigfoot phenomenon than what we realize and that what we understand. And even if science could prove the biological part of it, that still doesn't explain a lot of things.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this, guys. In y'all's investigations, have y'all come across or have y'all heard of anybody that has had the dealings of like mind, what they call mind speak or refer to as mind speak?
No, not forte. Now I have had investigations where they have the ominous feeling like to get out of here, you better leave. It was just a feeling.
And that could be just your senses doing its thing.
Right,
I mean, we do have things like that we possess.
Right.
Well, now actually, guys, back, I don't know, it's been 3 or 4 years ago. I was down in I guess West Georgia, South Georgia, on an investigation with some guys that I knew, and we'd gotten camp. I don't know, I think like on a Thursday and stayed till the weekend. But it was like I think the second or third night we was there. I kept along about 6 o'clock that evening. I started getting this. I don't know if it's something trying to talk to me or if it, what it was, but it was like something telling me to leave. And this went on all day, well, from about 6 o'clock that evening until about 10, 11 o'clock that night. And finally, I told the guys that I was with, I said, look, guys, there's something telling me to leave, and I'm going to pack my stuff up and get out of here. Well, one of the guys with us, he kind of made fun of me. Nah, man, you just chicken. So I said, hey, dude, I said, I've encountered a lot of this stuff in the woods. Ain't never encountered nothing like this. So I finally packed up and I left. Well, come home, and about, I think it was the following week or week after that, I had one of my friends that lived down there in that area call me. And he asked me if I had encountered any activity with the law while we were down there that weekend. I told him, no, I hadn't seen. We didn't see any. I said, why? What was going on? And he proceeded to tell me that they had found the body of a young girl that had been killed. She'd been raped and killed and thrown out down there about 2 miles from where we was at the same weekend that we were down there. So, I run into this, and then I got thinking back, this me having that feeling of leaving that weekend. So that's the only type weird thing that I've had happen to me as far as I guess if you could consider it mind speak, was that incident.
I think that's more of intuition than anything.
Well, I mean, it could have been. I don't know, but I know that happened to me, and it's just something that gives me. I've interviewed people, I've talked to people, face to face that actually tell me they've had dealings with these things, actually being able to, I guess speak to them telepathically. So that's the reason I like to ask everyone if they've ever encountered anything like this.
I've asked several and everything that nobody that I've interviewed or been around has had that happen. I'm not saying
Now,
it happened.
have you guys ever encountered any type of smells?
Yes. Definitely.
Going back
Now, do you think it's far as the smells? And this is kind of what I've encountered and what Ricky's encountered with me. We have not smelled that smell many times. But when we do, it's very odd. It's not one of those smells that you smell everywhere you go.
Right.
You know, like you can walk through one area and you smell it on one side. You walk through that area, you'll smell it. Then you keep walking, and you don't smell it. That's the best way I can explain how we've encountered the smell. It's not like you just smell it in a whole entire area. It's I don't know how else to explain it than that.
Yeah, it's like they get upwind of you, and then they kind of counter around and go downwind of you, and then yeah, I've had that happen to where I hunt at, and kind of back to where the telepathical stuff. Whenever I had kind of a 60-yard sighting of it, I was trying to either whistle or be like, hey, like trying to yell at it to kind of stop it and kind of stall everything that was happening. But it's like I couldn't get anything out to even whistle. I couldn't even, just couldn't even get a little whistle out to do that. But yeah, I've had kind of that distinct, real musky upwind smell, and then turn around and not be able to smell anything, but still feel that presence behind you of, okay, I kind of need to keep an eye out of that situation.
I think that would be more in on the infrasound that like Marcus had got hit when we were back at OART in the same area. That what we set up was we had been having activity in this one holler, and every time a vehicle would come in, we'd get all kinds of whoops. So we was going to set up to see if we could videotape what was actually making the whoops when a vehicle come in. So Marcus and Clint, they volunteered to be in the truck to drive out. Well, when they drove out, there was two of us, me and Stephen James is his name, went to the edge of a point bluff. Matthew and Logan Kraft, I think is his last name, Logan something. Anyway, went around to the far side of the bluff, and another team and went to the left of this bluff. Well, when the truck vehicle come back in where Matthew and Logan was at, me and James could see it with we had night vision, was watching them. Well, something had moved across that bluff that was human shape, and then all of a sudden it disappeared. So we was trying to figure out what this shape was and where it was, and if it was somebody else that come in, because we was radioing them. Well, about that time, Marcus and Clint had pulled up in the vehicle. Well, Marcus had leaned out the window, and he was kind of shining a light. I could physically see without the night vision that the light was swooping, and it was going almost to where this, whatever it was standing. Well, that's when Marcus started saying, we need to leave, telling Clint, radioed us on the radio, we need to leave out of here. He was feeling sick and nauseous and just bewildered. And that was our first, as a team, to see the effects of infrasound. I think that's what you were just saying there about your not being able to speak or was part of that. It kind of messes with your nervous system. That
Well, what infrasound is basically it's a frequency that is emitted, and lions and other predators are able to do the same thing. It stuns their prey. So basically, it makes you where you can't respond, you can't react. Basically, you're just frozen. And I wouldn't say fear, but you're frozen physically. But I was going just somebody left a comment just a second ago about the smell, about how it tracks. Basically, it is a leftover residual smell from where they've been. I would agree with that, but I know I have been very, very close to these creatures and not smelt them.
Right, me too.
Right, that was something I was going to ask y'all guys. Do y'all think that these creatures, do they emit this smell all the time, or is it something that they emit to warn you that they're in the area or that you're in their area?
From what I've encountered, I'd say it's both. And what that is certain ones, areas that we've been, you know it's there because you smell it instantly, and it's just constant. You can track it with the smell, but in that area, there's actual sulfur springs, and somehow or another they're drinking the water from that sulfur spring, and it permeating their skin. That was our easiest ones to be able to follow and track and do, and then the other ones there will be no smell at all, and until you anger them or something like that. I don't want to say frighten them because you ain't gonna frighten them, but very rarely surprise them. The only time you can surprise one is if you've been in the water and it's been in the water, because the smell is your smell is diluted.
I've never thought about that. I wonder if that's why I had my encounter the way I did, and they didn't realize I was there.
Yeah,
because we'd been out we'd been out in the rain all night for the most part. Like we were wet.
Yep.
I never even thought about that. Huh.
That definitely that could have been it. Sure could have.
Something I've been wanting to try because we do our own deer scents and everything is to actually. I'm thinking that there's more hunters now having sights of them because they're using cover scents. They're spraying themselves with scent
natural smells. Yeah.
Natural smells to where it didn't used to be that way. You hunted with dogs or you pulled up here and good old boy jumped out and run and killed a deer. Now you actually get there and you're all day long in your tree stand, bow hunting or whatever, and you got all these scents on. I believe that's why they're having more sighting by hunters now than it used to be.
All right, guys. Now, I don't know about in the area we are at down there, but in our area up here, we've had a lot of construction over the last 10, 12 years where people have been moving from Atlanta into the mountainous areas of North Georgia, building cabins, whatever up there, building big fancy homes, and
just like the one at Mortar Creek, yeah.
Right, and they've been having more. The people have actually been having more encounters with these creatures, because of that fact. So, what kind of impact do y'all think that's having on y'all down there compared to what it is us up here?
Same thing. It's going, yeah.
More logging too.
And I believe that's why there's getting to be more condensed to areas like the national refuges and stuff, because most of the year there's no activity there from people or whatever, especially in the remote parts of the refuge, and that's where they congregate or go to. Now they'll travel. I don't know if y'all noticed it or not, but we got highline wires that goes for miles in different ways. They actually use these highline wires as their highways. That and the waterways, they're always going to go back to the waterways, but we found more and more tracks that's in the highline right-of-ways. And I'm just wondering, I don't know none of these guys, but there's got to be some power line people out there that's had some encounters. But I don't know if they're scared to say about it or what, but just from the tracks and everything that we've seen, when they come into the power line, it don't go on out the other side. So you got this trail that's marked through the woods, and then it ends at the power line. So they went up the power line. That's all they could have done, or down, because they didn't go on across. So.
Right. I talked with a guy from down at Newnan, Georgia, a few months back, and he was telling me that he and his dad have a piece of property down there. I think the way he talked, that's probably a couple of 100 acres of it that they had bought. They were originally from Atlanta, had found that property down there. His dad had, and had liked the looks of the property so well that he actually bought the property, or purchased the property. I think he said like in 2010, and he actually built a house down there about he said about a quarter of a mile from where the power line's at.
Right.
They're on the property, and I think he said there was like a natural pond there already there, small pond, and they'd built a cabin there next to that pond. And he said that he had had an encounter there on the power line one morning about 6, 8 months after they had finished the cabin. He was going deer hunting, and he said he walked out into the edge of the power line, and he saw. He thought what he said he thought was a bear coming down the power line toward him, and he said that this thing. But he said what was so strange about it, the thing was walking was bipedal, walking on two legs, and he said this thing walked for probably like he talked from when he first saw it, like maybe 400 or 500 yards down to within about 75 yards of him before it threw its head back like it was winding him. And he said when it winded him, it turned and went off to the left of the power line off into a thicket. And he said that he got scared and went back and got his dad, and they went back down there about 45 minutes later, and they'd actually found tracks. Uh, Part of the old power line, there was like a big long streak where it was kind of muddy, he said, and they'd found 3 or 4 tracks that looked like human tracks, but they were about 3 times the size of what a human man's track should have been, a grown man's track. And he and I were discussing it, and he asked me, what do you think it was? And I told him, I said, well, first of all, if that thing had walked that distance, uh, bipedal, standing straight up walking, I said, it could not have been a bear, in my opinion, because I've hunted bear all my life in these mountains up here. And I have never seen a bear stand and walk that distance.
Right. They're not moving very fast. If they do stand up and walk, they're usually coming off of like a lint to a tree or something, or if they stand up on their they're clumsy when they walk. They ain't nothing clumsy about Bigfoot or what I've seen.
Oh no! Those things are agile, man. In the woods, we talked with a guy from Virginia here a few months ago. Had him on the show, and he was telling about an encounter they had back in 1989. Said a bunch of he and his friends had been out on a drinking spree, and they were at some national forest land up there, and he said they encountered a white one. They said this thing came out of the wood line, went down this ditch, and came back up this hill, and up next to where they were parked at, and it scared them so bad that they jumped in the truck. And he said they were running like 30, 35 mile an hour down this dirt road trying to get away from this thing, and it was running on 2 legs, keeping up with them. And one of the guys in the back, his employment at that time was setting up mobile homes, and he said there was like a 10-ton bottle jack in the back of the truck, and his buddy picked that thing up and threw it and hit this thing right square in the chest, and said the bumper jack just bounced off at it. And he said, hey, I had to speed the truck up. I was running 50, 55 mile an hour down that dirt road, so I thought I was going to crash at any minute just to get away from this thing. And this thing was literally chasing them. Well, I'm going to tell you something, man. When you take something that can take a blow from a 10-ton bottle jacket directly in the chest and keep coming after you, I don't want to fool with him.
No, me neither. That's something we require as far as if we're out in the woods as a group or anything, we require you to have some kind of protection. A lot don't, but there's a lot of things out there besides Bigfoot, but includes Bigfoot. We don't particularly say that, hey, we're going to go out and hunt one of these and to take one down or whatever, but you never know what situation you're going to be out there. We're prepared for anything that goes down, because like I said, 95% of these encounters are going to go good, but every once in a while you'll either get one that somebody else has done aggravated, or
having a bad day. Yep.
Yeah, or having a bad day. So you better be prepared. And what I've always told my guys is, I followed a guy that did a lot of grizzly bear photos, and he'd be right up to them and be fishing, and they'd be sitting right by him, and I followed his page for years. Well, ended up one day he got ate by a grizzly bear.
Mhm.
So that proved to me right there. No matter how good you think it is, there's some of them could have a bad day. So I want to be prepared for that bad day. If anybody's coming home, I want it to be me.
Right. I agree with you completely.
Got a
That's
question. Now, here in our area, they seem to be a connection with Bigfoot sightings and wildlife management areas.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, like I said, I think that it's there's so much housing and development going on in all the states, and these areas was set aside because, well, some would say because Bigfoot was already there, but I don't go that far. I think it's just that there's a huge amount of areas that there's nobody at, and they're drawn to them. Either because there's more wildlife, food there, or areas.
They're usually water and food. Two of
Yeah,
the main things is to sustain life. And most of them are more rural and doesn't have housing and stuff like that.
yeah,
It's more of just woods.
yep. That's what I would say.
I got a question here from one of the viewers. Do you guys do gifting? And if you do, what do you leave for gifts for them?
Well, this is going to be this investigation we're doing March 5th, 6th, and 7th over here at Hamer is going to be our first really big gifting that we've got into. We've left apples, small toys, and stuff like that, but we're actually going to clean an area off in the woods down to where it's really fine dirt and place cameras all the way around this area and put toys and stuff in the center of this area so that we can actually, this area where we're at, we've had, say, 20 different sizes of small tracks, anywhere from 6 to 14 inches tracks, and there's 20 different of these. So we consider there'd be 20 in this area. So we're hoping that these gifts will actually entice them to come across this powdered dirt that we have there, that plus to get in front of the cameras. We have had trouble. We get a lot of eye shine the first night we put up cameras, and then after that we get nothing. And I say eye shine, this eye shine that we had was probably 7 to 10 foot high, and it would move horizontally, and just outside of the infrared. We think it's caused the infrared on the cameras. So we're hoping to entice them by putting these gifts to where they'll actually come into the view of the camera. So this is our first time actually, I would say, gifting.
Okay.
I would be open to anybody's suggestions on what to put out there in this area, because we're going to do, it's probably 20 feet wide by 40 feet long, this area that we're going to rake off and have this. So anybody suggest what we put out there would be great benefit, because like I said, this is our first, we're still learning.
Hey,
Marbles, peanut butter, apples. Those kind of seem like, no matter where you gift at from state to state, those are kind of like fail safes.
Okay.
For some reason, they like marbles. That's one of their favorite things.
Right.
Hey, that
How do y'all
work good. That area where that we've got actual butt prints where they've actually sat down on this one big rock. It's powdered on top because it's got a bluff overhang. I bet marbles up there would be good. Yeah.
You know, the thing with gifting,
Right.
I mean, the food's one thing, but food is something that, unless it's in a jar or something like that, you know, you can't totally rule out, you know, you put something out there, it's edible, it's out in the open, you can't rule out it being another animal. But if
Right.
you put something out there like, you know, just objects, you know, what's going to take an object for it as marbles or, you know, say a jar of peanut butter. I mean, you have to have hands to open the jar of peanut butter. So, I mean, you know, use things that, you know, have less of a chance of they being cross contamination or you know, of something else, pretty much.
Right.
All right, guys, we got from one of our viewers here. Cherries work well too. That's something I've never tried. That may be something y'all boys want to try on your
Yeah.
next outing.
Yeah, we'll try it.
Wild cherries or something like that.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something that a guy from California we interviewed here a few months ago, and he actually had a hand track. And what he had done was he had took a set of post hole diggers with him where they was having activity at, and he said he had dug a hole about 2 foot deep, and he had filled this hole with Reese pieces, and then he said he had taken this sandbox grade sand, and he had poured it all around this hole, out about a 3 foot circle around this hole, about 3 to 4 inches deep. And the next morning, when he went back and checked it, this thing had actually had propped up on one hand in that sand and had dug those Reese pieces out of that hole and had ate them. And he got a full handprint of this creature that is about 4 times the size of my hand. And I mean, he got the fingers, thumb, and all where
Yeah,
it
he
is
had
pressed.
like, I mean, there are not many handprints. That's one thing that, you know, we don't have a lot of evidence of as handprints.
We've had
He has one of the very few handprints.
yeah. Out
But
of
you know what?
everything that we've and this was at Painburn where the area where them 20s at, I'd say. And we've had one handprint and 2 butt prints. So, but you was talking about that would about the Reese's Pieces or M&Ms. That would be good. We've been working up a deal to where, you know, the glow in the dark powder.
Right.
We was wanting to do an area with that, but it costs so much. But for like a 3 foot circle, it would only be like $30. So that would. Thanks for that. We'll definitely do that.
I mean, hey man, anything that, and that's what gets me is a lot of people, you know, that gain a little knowledge in this field, they don't want to share it with you. Well, now that's where Blake and I differ from most, because anything that we learn that we can pass on, we'll do it. I mean, that's something we have no problem at all.
That's the only way you're going to learn anything.
Yeah,
That's it.
we've worked with several different groups that get together and help each other. I mean, that's the only way you can do things, because it takes quite a bit of money to really do this stuff, even from your gas or whatever. But if we found out if we've different little teams and we get to communicating, each team has got different equipment. So if y'all all meet in one area or schedule an event, you got more resources that you can use or knowledge like this. You get around and talk to each other, and oh yeah, I can do that. You know.
Well,
Oh
and
yeah, I mean that's it. That's the whole key to it, and that's
it helps
something that
you connect. It helps you connect behavior, you know, because that's one of the main things is behavior. You know, that's one thing that we really, as researchers, try to understand is their behavior. And you know, when you have other people that share their knowledge of what they've learned as their behavior, I mean, it helps either verify or dismiss, you know, behavior behavior pretty much.
Yeah, if you got several people that's tried this one thing, even though you hadn't tried it, but it hadn't worked for none of them, more than likely it ain't gonna work for you either. So that's one you take off your list and do something different.
Yep.
That's it.
One of our guys had he just sent me a deal. They was out coon hunting last night. And anyway, their dog's treed and is about 300 yards away from them. This was, I'm guessing somewhere near where our area is at Sillamore. Anyway, somewhere there by Mountain View. And they heard 2 screams. The dogs come back to them. And then minutes later, as they was getting ready to leave, the screams come from, like it flanked them and come from beside them. And they got out of there. And that was from last night. So he was letting me know about that. You asked if we'd heard any activity. That's the newest thing that we'd heard.
Right. Guys, we also got the one of the viewers had posted black light paint works well too. Now that's something I've never tried. That's something that might y'all guys might want to incorporate.
Yeah, we actually do a lot of that. We got a haunted house here that we actually got probably bunches of that.
But, yeah, that's something we'll put out too.
Well, y'all guys do this strictly Bigfoot investigations, or y'all also into the paranormal side of it too?
I've done a little bit, and we've been thinking about getting into that. I've got 2 of the group that does that on their own, and they want to get the Arkansas boys into that. I just hadn't said yes yet, but I've been with them. Let's put it that way, and been in some crazy stuff. So I don't know.
Blake and I have been doing this since 2011 as far as the paranormal is concerned, and we were in a house up on Carbondale. What's that been? 4 or 5 years ago, Blake?
No, it's been probably 8 or 9 years.
Yeah, I guess it has been. But we were up there that night, and it's a big 2-story farmhouse. Well, and Blake will tell you this too, confirm it. We had saw the house up there, and he and I decided to go back up, and it's abandoned, and it sits up on the hill above the road, and we decided to go up there one night and see what we could drum up, I guess you'd say, there in the house. So we get up there about 10, 11 o'clock at night and walk up to the house. I mean, man, it's creepy as all get out, because you have to park on the main road and walk up. And we get up there, we go in the house, and it's one of these old type. It's built with just one long hallway right down the center of the house, and a set of stairways at the far end of the hall. Well, we go inside this thing, and we go all the way down, and the last door on the left, there's a big room. It opened up into a big room. We went through the door, and I noticed over in the corner where some floorboards had actually been pulled up and stacked back. And I walked over, going to shine my light down to see if I could see anything down under the floor. Well, when I did, got over next to the hole, it was just like somebody took 2 hands and shoved me over in this hole. I had to get Blake to help me out of the hole. All right, guys, we started back out the door, and our hairs get pulled, our head yanks back. We run from out and out onto the porch and out into the yard, and I look back up at the house, and there's like 3 dormer windows, dog boxes we call them, built on the front of the house. And then this upstairs window in the center of this thing was like just an outline of an old woman with like a glowing orange light around it. Now this house, it had no power to it for years. I mean, no light source, nothing inside the house, but yet I saw this.
Right.
Scared us to death. We get back home. We get talking to some of our friends, doing a little research on it, and come to find out that was one of the biggest deals with the house, was people actually seeing this old woman's shadow up in that window in the house. and we didn't know anything about it until we actually experienced it for ourselves. Needless to say, I have not been back up there to the house, but we've had some freaky stuff happen during the paranormal side of it.
I've had some pretty interesting things happen with the paranormal. I'm more like, I mean, I'm big into the Bigfoot and cryptic world, but I'm a paranormal investigator at heart. That's my thing.
Cool. Like I said, I've been a couple times with these other two people, but we just gonna have to see if we get into that or not. I've had some people actually, since we invest Bigfoot, asked us to come and check their house out, and so far I've turned them down. But I may have to accept it.
Well, y'all guys were saying that y'all like to get together with other teams. Well, hey, sometime in the near future, let's get together and me and Blake will travel out there and do an investigation with you.
Yeah, we can do it.
All right, would really like to do that. You've got my email, man, or got my you got me on Messenger.
Yeah.
Just just hit me up anytime that you'd like to get together, and we'll plan it up and go.
All right.
Let me see here. We got another question here. Actually, got two of them. Let's see what this first one is. So correct me about the smell. You know when red is around.
He was supposed to be here tonight, Dale Bullock. He's one of our team members, but he got lost. He's never been to the office. But
Never made it down, did he?
yeah, he owns the area where we saw them 20 different sets of tracks, and the biggest one, the 21 inch track, we contributed it to that guy. He calls it Big Red because it's got a red hairs color, and usually only time you start really smelling the smell is when the big red one is around. So that's why he's saying so correct about the smell. What was that question before that one, though? I seen it popped up. And
something about Pangburn?
Yeah, something about Pangburn.
Okay, we got one here. Got one here says Arkansas, not so far. I'm in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And then we got another one. Any near Pangburn.
Yeah, that's where our investigation is going to be in March. What was it, 5th, 6th, and 7th? Yeah, it's just outside of Pangburn. It's there. If he would want to join us, he can. He's invited if he wants to come out and do some Bigfoot investigation. Yeah, it's a rough terrain. I fell there our last time and broke a rib. So it's kind of rough terrain, but that's why the Bigfoot's there. Nobody else can get to it very good. So
right. We've got another one here. Jeff, some reports west of Searcy.
Yeah, Searcy, Arkansas.
Right.
I've heard some reports, but everybody that I've got reports from, they tell me where the area is, but nobody has access to it. I need somebody from Searcy that's got permission to where we can get into some of those areas. I get several reports from there. It'd be northwest of Searcy and south of Pangburn from where our area is at. It's an area called Sidon. I get several reports from there, and they tell me, well, you need to go check this out. Well, I go over there, and nobody wants to let me in to see it. So, I put it on the back burner.
Right, Blake and I, we have the same ordeal around here. People will email us or whatever, and give us a location of where they're having trouble spots at with these things. But then just trying to get permission to get in on the property is another thing.
Right.
Blake, you got anything else, buddy?
I'm worn out.
Have you went to sleep on
That's all I got. Day's been a day.
Sure has. Normally this time of year, I work in I don't know if y'all have ever heard of it, but aroma tea. We make candles, potpourri, all that kind of stuff. So our big sale is all for Christmas. And this time of year is our slow time normally. And I can get out and do my investigations and everything. And I got this store that I'm working in up here trying to get it going. So I said, well, I have plenty of time right now. No, they're working us to death there this year for some. I guess everybody's staying home and want to smell good, I guess.
right? Yeah, and normally that's the way it goes, man. You're going to have a lot of time to get out and do this stuff, and it's just always where something happens.
Yeah,
I know.
Something's all time going on. Like Marcus, he was supposed to be here tonight, and he got coming down here, and his water pump went out. And then Dale was coming over here, and he got lost before he got here. So y'all just got me and Matthew. But the Arkansas boys, actually, the hunting team and everybody together, there's 31 of us. But then on the Bigfoot side, there's 7 of us that do the Bigfoot stuff and that part. But
so one last question: what's been your most scariest encounter you've had? Like, or I shouldn't say scariest, but the most just unnerving.
That would be the last one at Sillamore where we got surrounded by them.
Yeah, we got flanked.
Yeah.
Y'all actually got for these things?
Yeah. They outsmarted us, or outsmarted me. I had to take full responsibility because I was the one had it all planned out, but it didn't go as planned.
Guys, we've got a couple of more questions here from the viewers. Yeah, I got rounded twice, 2005, Pigden area, or Arkansas. And then Dale Bullock says, I have heard about these. We also got one here. Also heard Bigfoot whooping Edgemont same year. That must be down in
exactly where he's talking about. I got a friend in that area. When the Big Red, the one that we're talking about, leaves from the Painburn area, he ends up over there. It's close to Hignan. They'll know where it is. It's Devil's Fort Park. That's something else. Why does a lot of areas have strange names for them, and Bigfoot happens to be there? Like that Devil's Fort Park. Bigfoot's there. What's the one over by Oart, the big place where everybody goes disappearing? The 411 is. What is the name of it? Man, I hate it when I do that. But anyway, they have strange names, and I contribute from several years before. There's actually something there, like Bigfoot. That's how it got its name a lot of times.
A lot of our parks and stuff down here just have normal names. So, I mean.
And then you also have areas, though, like the place I took you to last week up there on Sandy Gap. We got a place up there called the Bear Den. And I was asking no guy a few years back how in the world it got its name Bear Den, you know. I thought maybe it was because of actually so many bear being in the area. And he was telling me no, that back in the 40s, a guy had actually bought the property up there and was planning to build a house in there on the property. And uh, he had actually encountered something up there that scared him so bad that 2 weeks later he sold the property and never went back in there again.
Right.
So areas like that you can
Well,
contribute.
I mean, like Blood Mountain. I mean,
There you go.
Right over at Blue Ridge.
yeah.
Yeah, there've been a lot of sightings over there. That's on the Appalachian Trail. I had a friend of mine lives down at Dallas.
I got a friend that's doing an investigation there. Probably it's Wednesday, and on tomorrow he starts. He's going to be there the whole weekend live at Blood Mountain. So,
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's where we do a lot of investigating over there.
he was telling me something about the Indians, and there was moon-eyed people that that's how it got its name about being blood, because they went in and whatever he contributes it to Bigfoot, killed a bunch of the Indians there, and the blood run down through the.
Right, they said it covered the mountain in blood. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's.
I kind of know where you're at now.
They
Then.
say actually there's a lot of paranormal stuff that actually goes on the mountain over there because of that. That's what I started saying. I've got a friend lives down in Dallas, Georgia, that is actually in one of my Bigfoot groups. I've also got a group here, Georgia Sasquatch Reconnaissance on Facebook. Y'all guys need to check that out too. It's for we started out mainly as Georgia researchers for a place for them to go and leave, evidence, leave their findings that they've had. It's kind of like a deal where we can actually share it with the younger generations that started out in this.
Good.
Yeah, she's opening up here. We've got let me see here, Edgemont. We got a deal that says I've heard about those. Saw rock stacks, Higdon also.
We've seen a lot of that at OARC, but I don't know. There's people that it's a national forest, so
Yeah, it's not definitive enough.
yeah. So I look at those and take it with a grain of salt. I don't know yet.
Yeah.
There's an area up on Jacks River that's up on the Cohutta WMA, and Cohutta WMA is actually a 48,000 acre wilderness area up in the middle of Grassy Mountain. Back when I was younger, I used to go in there about every weekend hiking, me and my son, and there's no area down in there. I'm trying to think of what they call the place. Beach Creek, they call it. And you go down, the trail comes down right there at the creek, and you cross the creek, and you're going like you're going down toward Jacks River itself. And I have encountered old rock stacks down there, about 15 or 20 of them where rock have been just old flat rock and stuff have just been stacked on one another, top of one another. These things have been in there so long that they're actually covered in moss. So, if it's Sasquatch doing it in that area, they've been in there for years, according to that stuff.
Yeah.
And the research I've done on the rock stacks is actually goes back to a lot of old Indian lore saying that the Bigfoot left those as trail markers.
There's all kinds of. After you've been in it a while, you start to realize what the markings mean. I hadn't been in on the, like I said, on the studying the rock stacks and everything, because the areas where I see them, people's been there. But I can't say yay or nay. But on the trail markers, you can actually see where it's pointing to water, or what you would say a field for a food source is, or like I said, dominance. The different signs that's out there, and you get to where you can actually, I don't want to say read them, but you kind of know what they're saying, and you know what direction to go, because they're telling other things, hey, this is where we need to go. So if you'll follow it and watch for it, you can actually get close to their patterns and movement.
There's something significant.
Right. Blake and I have encountered where their tree breaks. And I mean, I'm talking like some of them 10, 12 foot off the ground, where they've actually took 8, 10-inch limbs and broke these things and twisted them. But we found them where they actually all point in one direction. And,
Yep.
you know, I think that's actually a trail marker showing them the direction, just like we would use a map.
Yep.
Kind of like the Indians used to do for waterways and things like that.
Yep.
Right. And, you know, that goes back to, I think that Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to call them, I think that it goes back, you know, years and years to where they actually learn a lot of their behavior that they do today from the Native Americans.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
vice versa.
Yeah, or vice versa.
Yeah. And the same with us today, or Native Americans, depending on what group you're in or family structure, depends on how mean they are, or how, just like you had Indians that had Native Americans, if you want to call, had a worse reputation than the other ones, like I don't know, Cherokee. They would seem to be meaner than the Blackfoot. Well, I think that happens the same thing in Bigfoot. Where you want to call them, tribes or clans or groups, you'll have a more peaceful group over here, or a group over here that seems to be, they do more bluff charging than this group does. This one group just kind of wants to get away from you and just view you from a distance. This group over here will come actually at you and bluff charge you, try to run you off, or might even get worse. Who knows? But that's been our encounters. So,
Right, guys, I've got a viewer here that says they seem to avoid cameras, and then another one says I think they're too fast for cameras. What's your feelings on that?
both, yeah. I say they'll run right, kind of like you were saying about the one with the vehicle. From what I've seen, about 40 mile an hour is if you time it and judge it, they can run up to about 40 mile an hour. That is fast to going through the woods.
Yeah, especially with trail cam, you know, it's not going to activate fast enough to actually catch the creature in its act. I mean, it's going to catch a photo after it's done past the trail cam.
Right.
Which would make sense why we get a lot of trail cam video or a lot of trail cam photos with nothing in the picture.
Yeah.
Right, I've got a viewer here that says one of my neighbors bought some very high fast cameras and has got nothing but red blurs.
Yeah.
That goes back to
looked into cameras, and we can't afford them yet. That ain't got none of the infrared. It's all ultraviolet. They're about $1,000, so I'm hoping to get one of them. If anybody out there wants to donate to Arkansas Boys one, I'd most appreciate it.
And we still don't even know what spectrum of light they can see. They may be able to see ultraviolet as well. I mean,
maybe, I don't know, but that's what I've been looking at, and that's where I think we need to go if we can
at least try it. I mean,
yeah.
Right, I mean, guys, there's so much about these creatures that we don't know. You know, people will holler, oh, they've done this for 50 years. They know all that can be known about these creatures. But hey, you know, as a researcher, I've been doing this for 40 years, and basically I have just scratched the surface
Yeah,
what these.
we don't have an instruction book.
That's it. Yeah. And
That's right. That's just like, you know,
I
and it's
know.
like a new parent with a baby. They don't have an instruction book with it. Well, that's the same way with you know, doing Sasquatch investigations. No, we don't have an instruction book. We don't know what these creatures are actually capable of. And that was another question I want to ask you boys.
And that goes back for his behavior also, because I mean, all because some things yielded good evidence for somebody in some area, doesn't mean that that it's going to do the same for you. It may
Yeah.
give you an idea, and they may be a connection to a certain point for is that particular behavior or something like that, but it's still not guaranteed.
That's right. That's back to the clans or family group. One, because they've learned it in their area over years or 1,000 years, may do something totally different than this group that's over here. Like I said, over at OARK, you can track them real easy and everything by the structures. Well, over here at Payburn, I've seen one structure there, but what you do get a lot of over at Payburn is tree break. Like we come through there walking and past this one tree, and when we come back out, this tree had been twisted up, and it's what?
A good 10, 12 inches.
Yeah, it's a circle about like this, and this tree had been bent over and twisted. Within 15 minutes, we just walking through there. So it was right there with us, you know, when we went.
Guys, have y'all ever encountered anything like this? Blake and I, on an investigation, actually found where they had actually ripped a tree out of the ground. They turned it upside down, shoved that thing back down in the ground, and the root system was sticking up in the air.
Yeah, and this wasn't no small tree. I mean, even a group of people would have a hard time doing this. Like,
that's where when I had my encounter and up there's one structure. It's got at least 7 old trees flipped upside down, sitting in a tree, and it's no tornado damage, no any old
no explanation. Yeah.
yeah, there's no wind damage up there in this area or anything, and they're all pretty much flipped upside down, all probably at least 15 feet up and sitting into probably a 50, 75-year-old oak tree. And it's just every single one of them, all around, almost like a teepee. So that's when I started investigating up there more and found more footprints, and then within a 50-mile radius find more structures and X's and kind of lettering type situations of how the branches and twigs and stuff are stacked against trees or within intertwined.
Right. Guys, before we go, I want to ask you one question. What are y'all feelings about as far as the behavior of these creatures? Do y'all think they're a mundane species that are just out there hanging out in the woods, or do y'all think they can be aggressive enough to actually kill a human if it came to it?
Oh yeah, they could definitely kill. Just from our experience at Sillamore, yeah, where we got surrounded, they definitely can kill a human. From and it may be situations that you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. You happened in, and they're very territorial. So
Well, the way I look at it is, it's just like every other animal. You got to look at the situation. I mean, did you do something to provoke the creature, or, are you in between a young and it, or, it's just, same with humans and bear and everything else. You get in between a young and the mother. I mean, that's one of the worst situations you can be in. If they feel threatened, they feel like their young's threatened, you may not know that young's around, but you may get an aggressive reaction.
that's, I think, what happened to us there at Sillamore, because it was box canyon that come out of. It was actually it's a river there, but it was dry at the time we was there. But they call it a river. Anyway, it's a box canyon, and it comes out of that box canyon into a Y. Well, up one side of this Y, we found all the tracks and everything. We found a larger track and then two sets that was probably 12 to 14 inches set of tracks there. So the plan was to actually come down that Y and to push them where they'd come by our cameras. Well, they went up where the tracks was at, but there wasn't nothing there. So Matthew and Marcus and Austin come back to the Y to where we could radio them, we could see them. Well, they went up the other Y. And at the time, we'd been up there, but we didn't see nothing during the day, you know, our recons. Well, once they got up there, the other three team members was back here where we was hoping that they would have come back through. Well, Matthew and Marcus and Austin actually got to see two of them. If it wasn't for Matthew here, I think Austin might have lost his head, but from one of them swapping at it. But after that was said and done, I think that's what happened is that we'd run in onto a family group there. Well, we had the bright idea to come back, and we was going to flank them and come in from behind them and still be able to get our good video. Well, when we run into where we come around the back side of them, they was already there waiting on us. They already knew what we was going to do and was all the way around us. So it was time for us to get out of Dodge. That's all I can say. So they outsmarted us. So
Blake, have you went to sleep there, buddy?
Just about it.
All right, guys. I want to thank y'all boys. Y'all really done a good job tonight. We really appreciate it. Anytime y'all want to come back on the show, you've got a standing invitation. Any new evidence that you gather that you want to share with the viewers, just give us a holler and we'll have you back on anytime.
All right. Well, like I said, we'll be in touch and we'll let you know how that deal goes in March 5th, 6th, and 7th. And might be back and give you a recap of it.
All right. That sounds great with us. And like I said, anytime y'all boys decide you want to host us one weekend, just give us a holler and we'll put things together and come off down there and meet you in person.
All right, sounds good.
It was good meeting you guys.
Yeah.
Good having you on the show, and thank you guys very much.
All right, everyone. It's been a great night. We've had great guests tonight. Mr. Wendell, we really want to thank y'all boys for coming on here. And again, anytime y'all want to come back, just give us a holler and we'll be glad to have you back on. Everyone, the Arkansas boys, they're doing a great job out there. Hope they continue doing it. That's all for tonight. I want to thank you for tuning in to Northwest Georgia Cryptics. I'm Rick Weaver, Blake Duckworth. Blake, you got anything before we go, bud?
Nope. Just as always, guys, thank you guys for your support. And if you don't mind, hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed.
All right, Wendell. Y'all, good night, guys.
Good night, and God bless.
All right, good night, everyone. I want to thank you for joining in tonight, and we'll catch you the next Wednesday night.
All right.
Good night, guys.
Good
All right,
night.
good night, guys. All right, Blake. I'm going to turn her off here, buddy. It's bedtime. Good night, everybody. Everybody be safe out there.